Right, here's the latest on this Royal Enfield Constellation that's come back recently to have some attention. And as you can see, I've got the Magneto off, and that's already in a box and on its way to see Tony Cooper to have a going over. So at least we'll be able to eliminate that from the equation when it comes back. Hopefully that might get us up and running on 2 cylinders, even at kick-starting and tick-over speeds. If not, then I'm really going to be scratching my head. So while the timing cover's off and the Magneto's away on holiday, I also told the owner that I'd look into the wet sumping issues that seem to develop rather quickly since I didn't rebuild this engine. I recommissioned it. But among the things that I did, I adjusted the timing chain and checked a few things, and I fitted new oil pumps because the oil pumps were worn out, really badly worn out, and obviously they were old and they'd done a lot of miles. So I got some nice new ones. And when I first started running the engine, everything was fine and there was no sign of wet sumping. Then I did a few miles on it. Now bear in mind, this thing's probably done no more than about 50 miles, 60 maximum in total since it was recommissioned. And obviously we've had the heads off, barrels off, I've seen the pistons, the rings, the bores, the valves, all that sort of stuff. But anyway, it's probably done around 50 miles since it was recommissioned with the new oil pumps. And I noticed after doing the first few miles, a couple of runs on it, that all of a sudden, after it held oil when I filled it to the mark on the dipstick on the bench before I started riding it about, but it had the new oil pumps fitted and everything, and I'd run the engine on the bike lift, that the oil level was staying nice and steady and up to the high mark on the dipstick. Then, after a couple of runs and putting it away, I noticed after a week or so, the oil level on the dipstick had dropped a little, and when I started the engine up, it smoked for a minute or two, then cleared itself and it was fine. Anyway, I didn't really think more of it than that, because it's one of those, oh, they all do that, sir, sort of things, to a point anyway. And eventually, obviously, the bike went home to its owner, who almost straight away started noticing heavy wet sumping. Lots of smoke coming out the exhaust and the oil disappearing off the dipstick and everything. And I just couldn't understand it. I fitted new oil pumps, I checked everything. It didn't wet sump to begin with, and I was wondering how on earth can this have happened, you know. And you start thinking, is the owner making it up? Has he done something? Well, I've got the answer, because while I had the timing cover off to get the Magneto off, I told the owner that I'd just check, even though I'd fitted new oil pumps, I'd just have a look at them and see if I could see any clues. And I thought perhaps they wouldn't be seating as well as they ought to in their recesses in the timing cover, but they're seating very well. But here we go, I'll explain what we've got. And it's the feed pump is the main culprit. I'll just take this head torch off now, I don't think we need that anymore. The oil feed pump, brand new. Like I say, it's done about 50 miles. Sorry, that's that's a scavenge. We'll come back to that. Here's the feed pump. Right, brand new. 50 miles or so ago. And maybe an hour or so's running on the bike lift. Now hopefully, I've got the camera on a tripod, so that hopefully I can demonstrate this better than trying to hold the camera and do this by hand, but should be able to see that plunger wiggling about in that pump disc there. I'll get my head torch back on, actually, get some more light on that, because I was totally gobsmacked when I saw this, but nevertheless it gives me an explanation, which is always nice to have. Brand new, 50 miles ago. You could call it 100 miles if you wanted. It certainly hasn't done 100 miles. Look at that play there. Now, my concern had been that the face of the oil pump disc might not have been seating too well in the timing chest and letting oil past it, but it's been seating fine. what's been happening is, and especially with a warm engine, this rapid wear that we've had here just allows the oil to cascade through the pump disc and past the plunger and out and into the timing chest, and then from there into the crankcase, causing a wet sumping. I mean, the oil will absolutely pour past that, especially when it's warm. Thought I'd better get the scavenge pump assembly out as well and just have a look at that. Now, there's a little bit of play there. I'm not too concerned about that. The pump plunger diameter in the scavenge pump is much larger, so there's a much greater sort of bearing area between the plunger and the disc anyway, so they would tend to last longer and wear less. But this pump disc might as well have been made out of chocolate. That's probably got more play in it than the original knackered pump that I took out of the engine, and that certainly shouldn't go like that in the space of about 50 miles. So I'm going to be looking into that. Trouble is, I may well get offered a replacement, but if I get a replacement, is that going to be the same? I don't know, but all these questions need asking. But I know one thing, I've got an answer, and that is my culprit for the wet sumping. And that happened very rapidly, far too rapidly. So, like I say, at least we've got an explanation, and hopefully when I get the Magneto back, it would be nice if the Magneto was at fault, and that sorts out our starting and ticking over and running problems, and maybe we'll be able to eliminate the wet sumping as well, and finally have this thing knocked into shape and behaving itself. I hope.